welcome to Past, Present, and Future, or Three Questions, the podcast where we learn about people's career journeys, how they got to where they are today, and where they'd like to go to next. I'm Parrots Cohen, a technologist and a wordsmith, and in my time in industry, I've been fortunate to work with both large companies and small startups, alongside a number of very talented and hardworking individuals. This podcast is some of my conversations with them, where we learn about their journeys and what motivates them. If you'd like to be in the podcast, please feel free to reach out. You don't have to have a certain level of seniority or a number of years of experience. We all have something to share and learn from each other. If you'd like to sponsor the podcast or get involved in the collaboration, we'd also like to hear from you. All right, looking forward to our journey together as we learn more about each other and enrich ourselves in the process.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Past, Present, Future. Today we have with us on the show Chris. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, Chris, let's start at the beginning. Love to hear a little bit more about the beginning of your career.
Yeah, well, let's see, how far back do we want to go? I was one of the first kids I knew in my small town that got a computer, and that just unlocked the door and got me started on a full speed sprint downhill towards technology. As a teenager, I worked for the local library, helping with their internet access. The library was the first place in town that had real internet access in my small town. I got a job working for a small ISP a couple of towns over after I graduated high school, and it just accelerated from there. I really kind of got more into what I would call like development type things a little bit later on, probably in my late 20s, early 30s. Um, I worked a lot of networking, like traditional um, networking, desktop support type jobs all through my 20s. And then whenever I made a major life change and moved to the big city of Houston, um, I kind of got involved with a company that the guy had started himself, and he needed somebody who could come in and help him build up his network infrastructure, but also somebody who was willing to take on things like managing his website, managing his internet marketing, and all that. And I was the guy he hired for that, and spent quite a few years there helping him build up his business. And it was a nice situation for me because I was able to get paid while I'm learning all this stuff on the fly, using somebody else's checkbook, basically. Um, and that's really the point that kind of catapulted me into doing development and search marketing. Um, from there, I went on to work for a pretty well-regarded search marketing agency, left there and went into entrepreneurship for a number of years. Got tired of that for a bit and then went to work for Automattic. And after Automattic, I've been kind of in the spot of trying to figure out what I want to do next. So it's a long and storied history.
No.
But the vast majority of my um, career, whether it's been in development or in search marketing or in desktop support, has really just all been centered around being the kind of person who somebody else looks to figure out how to fix my problem. Yeah, my business isn't getting enough traction online. Help me fix this. My website's broken. Help me fix this. My internet's down and I don't know why. Help me fix this. So kind of, even though I've do specific jobs during specific times during my career, it's all been centered around help me fix this and being the helper who fixes it for them. So
Yeah, I mean, that's great that you identify that through line, which is really about kind of assisting users or customers on their journey, whether it's a library in a small town or kind of an agency working on hundreds of e-commerce sites, or kind of the heart of a lot of e-commerce and kind of content on the web, really kind of utilizing that same mindset along the way. I guess the question I would have, kind of in thinking about your current career in the past and kind of in the present, what enabled you to, I mean, beyond being able to kind of learn kind of on the job and kind of having that support. But what mindset do you think helped you pick up new domains and kind of put yourself more technically or more in the marketing sphere and kind of picking up new skill sets as you went through your career?
Um, it's a great question. I think honestly, a lot of it stems from just by how I grew up. Like we worked on our own cars, we fixed things in our house because we just simply couldn't afford to. And so that mindset of you're going to have to learn to do it yourself was instilled into me early on, and that just kind of became ingrained in me. Like if something in my house is broken, I'm going to figure out if I can at least fix myself, I'm going to figure out what the issue is to have, an informed mindset when I approach somebody else to help fixing it. Um, I at the risk of sounding too like old and crotchety here, I think a lot of people um, miss that miss out on that part of their life of taking the time to figure out what's something, whether it's their website or their car or their washer and dryer, like taking a little bit of time to do a little bit of research and figuring out a little bit for themselves. So even if they can't do something for themselves, to have an informed mindset or informed base, in order to get that fixed correctly or efficiently. Um, I think just for looking through my whole career, it's more of all these things that I'm helping other people with, or just it really at the core kind of a personal challenge, like, oh, so and so's website's broken and two other developers couldn't fix it. Well, obviously I can't be the one not to fix it, the third one not to fix it. Like I have to do it. So um I think that's yeah, it just comes down to just a personal challenge, I think, really.
No, that's an important piece, and I think you hit upon an interesting aspect. I think especially in the age where we're moving towards of where information is readily available, but what can be lost on it, like, is there's benefit in the joy of even trying a problem set or trying a technical problem that you can't solve. There's something you learn. There's muscles you build in that experience, whether it's mental muscles or dealing with kind of like a physical or hardware challenge. Or I definitely got a lot of enjoyment in my youth of like taking apart my laptop and like replacing the screen or replacing the keyboard and just learning by doing and challenging yourself, even if it's something that maybe be kind of quote unquote wasted time. It's not a wasted experience in terms of kind of building that wisdom in that experience. Um, Switching gears here a little bit, you got to be on the inside of the heart of kind of content management systems, kind of on the web. Where do you see kind of where the industry as a whole is shifting? Where do you see the kind of the place of content management systems in the future or kind of websites in the future, as a lot of kind of the day-to-day consumer experience shifts more towards apps or more towards those modal and fragments and different interfaces beyond just kind of what's happening now with Gen AI? You have AR and VR and just different kind of ways of consumer interaction. Where do you see the place of CMS and websites in this kind of in this new age?
Um, that's a very extremely loaded question. Um, I I constantly see, and I know if you spend any amount of time on any social media, you've seen the same things of where someone has said, "Oh, I prompted ChatGPT or I prompted Gemini or Claude or whatever, and it built this beautiful website for me for my business," and that's great. I think the having those kind of tools to build a simple landing page or simple business card type website are like awesome for a small business. But when you move beyond that and you need forms or you need a way to tie into your CRM or you need, you know, X, Y, and Z, that starts, at least for now, those are starting to fall apart. So I think there's, at least for the foreseeable 5 to 10 years, always going to be a market for CMSs like WordPress, Drupal, even things like Shopify or Squarespace that are more hosted platforms. Um, I don't think we're going to get away from those kind of platforms for the next few years, simply because once you're past the level of, here's my information, call me, and you start doing those more complicated things, people are going to find out really quick that AI is not going to help them with that as much as they thought. Um, I don't know. I being someone who is deeply ingrained in that CMS, on one part, I like, AI is never going to replace yada yada yada. At the same time, there's a lot of cool things with AI that are supposed to be start happening inside WordPress, inside these other platforms. Just things from like a content generation standpoint. I mean, I love AI content as much as anybody, but in some cases, it does make sense for a business or a person to utilize that. Maybe someone's not a great writer, but they can throw together a WordPress site. Them prompting to build out a services page with content that's going to help them get ranked. I think that's a pretty decent use of AI in that situation. Um, things where somebody like that could use AI to find a plugin that's going to work exactly for their situation, or to help them get a plugin set up adequately versus staring at a screen of options they don't really know what is doing for them. Um, I think all those things are here now, or in the very near future, that are going to be really good things. Um, but at the same time, with all that comes AI slop. Like, there's going to be a lot of bad that comes in with the good. And um, unfortunately, I think most average users are not going to be able to determine the difference right away. Um, so I think it's going to get a little bit more worse before it starts to get better in that aspect. So.
No, that's very helpful, both in kind of the context of the necessity in terms of that backend and server structure for where there's still going to be a broad market for CMS and for those knowledgeable and setting up those aspects of websites, and in terms of like how AI is already kind of benefiting users and customers. On that note, and kind of a similar question, what type of challenges do you look forward to kind of tackling and working on, and kind of as you move your career forward, what do you look forward to next, kind of in terms of like challenges or areas?
Um, that's a great question. At this point, my honest answer is I don't know. Um, I've since leaving Automattic, I've been in this kind of suspended state of moving to a new city, buying a house, doing a lot of house renovations. So making a career change has been on the back burner a bit. But I have been talking with a lot of old clients from my uh, previous entrepreneurship days, and doing some side gigs for them. Just kind of getting back into that, like, we need help with this client's website, or we need this kind of thing built for us, or the site is suddenly dropped off of Google. What can you help us figure out why? Um, Getting back to those sorts of things has kind of helped me reset a little bit and try to figure out what I want to do next. I think a lot of it is looking more towards diving back into WordPress from a building standpoint, instead of uh, support and working for the mothership, uh, where I was for almost 10 years. Um, just getting back to like looking at somebody's website who um, has a thriving business, but their site is just a dumpster fire and hadn't been updated in probably a year, and working with someone to help them get the site updated. Um, it's really kind of making me kind of fall in love with that sort of thing again. So I'm really thinking about kind of restarting my um, website building agency, search marketing consulting type agency, and getting back into those sorts of things again. I know it's a very deep and crowded pool to jump into right now, especially. But I was it was deep and crowded when I was there before, and so why not now? So.
If I were to use a metaphor of sorts, kind of transitioning from the plumbing of a garden to kind of more into landscaping and kind of working on individual plants and kind of seeing and planting those birds of paradise, as it were.
Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and whenever you're working on something as large as WordPress from, inside, it's extremely difficult, almost impossible for you to see what, if you're only there working on the plumbing, you never get to see what the garden looks like after everything's bloomed and grown. Um, and I was kind of lucky from a standpoint that I'd spent so many years doing that and coming into um, the development side of Automattic, um, that I had a lot more context than most of my coworkers for these sorts of problems that users might face. Um, but now that I've been inside and like am going back out into the garden, I have a little bit more, um, I guess you say, forethought as to how things should work, rather than before I was kind of making it up as I go. Now, having been on the inside, I can walk into that backyard and see the entire system that needs to happen before the first thing ever gets planted. So
That's yeah, this is it's great to kind of just hear about your mindset throughout your career and kind of where you feel kind of things are going and where you're kind of looking to take your career yourself as well. Thank you so much for joining the show today. It was a pleasure having you on and wishing you so much success in the journey ahead.
yeah, thank you. It's great to be on here.